This is Crystal with the 9 o'clock Meltdown, and I have Erica Adams on the line, and we are going to talk about her book, and she's won a couple awards. We're just going to dive right in. Hello, Erica.
Hi, Crystal. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been a hot minute. I've had you on the show before, but
Right.
let's dive right in. So your book is gaining some traction, gaining some recognition. You've won a couple
Yeah.
awards, but let's jump back for people that aren't familiar with your book. You came out with this book a couple of years ago, a little novella, which is amazing. Let's dive into
Thank
kind of
you.
what the book is about and how you got started.
Thank you. Yeah. Before I do that, I just want to mention, I think when we did that first interview years ago, in hindsight, I don't think either of us ever actually mentioned the title. Like, at all. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But no, this time I'm going to make sure at least one of us mentions it. Allie's Adventure on the Wonder. So people
Perfect.
actually know what we're talking about this time.
Yeah, for sure.
So-
For sure.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, yeah. So I self-published Allie's Adventure on the Wonder. It began as a school project at UMD. I was taking childhood and literature and culture, which was the study of young people and various stories of different media, demographics, and genres. So we studied everything from Cat in the Hat to Children of the Corn, a very wide range. And another text we did was Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll from the 1860s. And an option for our final project was to write a short story and an essay to go with it based on a text of our choosing. And so I chose Alice in Wonderland. And the idea of my story based on that was I have auditory processing disorder. I was diagnosed at about 16 months. It affects the way my brain takes in information. Sometimes if I get a lot of info at once, or if I'm in a crowded space, a lot of talking, a lot of noise, it just doesn't, like, I may be able to hear it, but it doesn't stick. It doesn't stick in my head the way it should. And going through Alice again, I realized that a lot of the faulty logic she shows, the distraction, like saying things that she shouldn't, that kind of mirrors my symptoms.
So
Yeah.
you wrote yourself into the story.
Yeah, it's a semi-autobiography. There are some nonfiction elements, but also a lot of elements from Alice in Wonderland. The story has some subtle fantasy. I don't know if I want to say magical realism per se, except for some dream sequences. The story is totally grounded in reality.
Oh,
So, yeah, just in the story, pretend that the Alice universe doesn't exist. But yeah, if you know the story reading it, then you'll recognize a lot of the elements. Like I have a teacher named Mrs. Red Heart, Queen of Hearts. And one of my other main characters, Charlie, his name in the story is Charlie Carroll. And the name comes from not only Lewis Carroll, but also Charles Ludwig Dodgson, which was the real name behind Lewis Carroll. Lewis Carroll was the pen name. So Charles Dodgson was the man's real name.
very cool. I learned something today. Thank you. So your book has gained some traction. Now you did a self-publish. I myself know about self-publishing as well. I self-published a couple poetry books and then my memoir as well. Shameless plug.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. But what was that self-publishing kind of like? I know I went through Amazon, but you yourself have paperback copies and things like that. What was that process like for you?
Okay. Began with, at that point I had no publishing experience whatsoever. And not to talk smack about Duluth in any way, but I couldn't find anyone willing to look at my book at the time because a lot of publishers in Duluth and just that part of Minnesota in general, there's a heavy focus on tourism. So they usually don't look at a lot of stuff unless it's like about Duluth or it's related to like Lake Superior, Anchor Tower, like landmarks and that part of the area. And I get it. That's, again, I'm not, no disrespect, it's just the way it is. But it did make it hard for me to find somebody to look at my work. But my luck changed when I went to at the time, Zenith Bookstore was doing their grand opening at the time, and they had a big gathering. And they had some vendors, I think some authors and publishers, and I met a representative from Beavers Pond Press. Okay. Actually, I just realized I'm getting ahead of myself.
That's okay.
That was just before I published New Moon's Family. When I couldn't find a traditional publisher for my first version of Allie's Adventure on the Wonder, I went with a Book Baby. They were at least able to get it online and print some copies. It was a limited run, though. I didn't have a lot of other resources. I had to do the marketing completely by myself. Like I had to put it on Amazon by myself and it wasn't gaining a lot of traction there. Then I marketed it as a novella, but in reality, it's like a really short story. Again, my inexperience talking there. Yeah, at least I was able to tell people about just those close to me, anyone I was able to meet. Later on, around like 2018, 19, I was publishing my book, New Moon's Family, children's picture book. That's when I found Beaver's Pond at Zenith. About a year, like 1 or 2 years later, I published New Moon's Family from Beaver's Pond Press. COVID happened just barely a couple months later, and I got a little more marketing experience somewhat, but other than maybe some interviews on radio and TV, that was about the only way I could really get out there. New Moon came out in October 2019, and that the very weekend when the shutdowns were really starting to take effect, I had 2 book appearances planned, and of course, those got canceled. It was like a conference in Wisconsin and then the Astro Kids Day at the UMD Planetarium. But no, better safe than sorry. No regrets. I would have liked to go safety first. But then after that, later on, once I had New Moon out and over the years following that, I was able to get a little more marketing experience. Beaver's Pond was very gracious for that. They're pretty expensive, but you get a lot for your money. They assign you a project manager who's with you every step of the way. We emailed constantly. So yeah, they assign a manager for every project as a personal guide of sorts. And so they guided me with the editing. They offered resources. Like with New Moon, they said, we have a lyricist who can help with the rhyming element of the story. You want to enlist her? And I'm like, yeah, worth a few more $100. Once New Moon came out, which turned out gorgeous, they also sent me a list of contests, festivals, book conferences to showcase my work. They did the same thing with Allie's Adventure. Now we're moving on to moving on to the main topic, Allie's Adventure. Yeah, later on I decided I wanted to expand the story now that the school assignment was long over and I didn't have any restrictions I had to follow with like word and page count and all that. I wanted to make some full chapters. I had a lot of fun playing with the chapter names, like Down the Rabbit Hole, Down the Habit Hole, School of Tears instead of Pool of Tears. I had some fun with that. And then I did more research on APD itself. I did just talk to my family about what was happening in my infancy. There's a lot I don't remember. Had to get some of the story or the backstory behind that. So I added more nonfiction elements in there as far as my experiences were concerned. Based on my memory, my family stories, my own personal research, one of the things regarding APD that I wanted to make clear in the story was that this is my experience and it's not going to be the same for everybody. It can affect kids, it can affect adults. It's actually more common in males than females. So that's a major element to keep in mind. Yeah, there's still a lot that's really unpredictable about it. It's a lot better understood now. I was born in 86 and I was diagnosed roughly 2 years later. So in the mid 80s, it was a lot less understood. It was a process of elimination of sorts. They ruled out everything else. I don't know whether the spectrum was a thing back in the 80s, but as far as I know, I'm not in the spectrum. I don't think I had any ear infections. I had to rule out the more obvious. Same with ADHD. I don't know how prominent or well known it was back then, but I've learned later that, and I think there's actually a section on Wikipedia that explains this. APD can actually be confused for a lot of other conditions, especially ADHD. It can be confused for hearing loss, certain other hearing disorders. Okay, so yeah, Wikipedia has this nice little chart here. Inattentiveness in ADHD resembles difficulty hearing and background noise in APD. Distraction versus difficulty following oral instructions. Hyperactivity versus poor listening skills. On the outside, especially if you're not versed in hearing disorders, it's very easy to mistake one for the other. So that's another problem regarding APD. And yeah, and if you're, and it's as cruel as this sounds, for all anyone else knows, I could totally be making this up and faking it. Implied that it's, why is your mother with you at this school meeting? It's like, you're an adult. There are things that I should be doing completely on my own without help, that sort of thing. That's been the most painful aspect of it, especially in school. Some teachers in particular have been more patient than others. Yeah. So that's what both Alice and Allie go through. It's like she's the normal one. It's easy to say that the creatures of Wonderland are the weird ones. And that's probably what was intended anyway. But I think it can go the other way around, because it's the inhabitants of Wonderland have their own logic to what they do as work as it seems on the outside to us. But Alice is the one invading their space. She's the one who goes into the rabbit's house and she sees the potion on the table and she's, oh, I'm sure something interesting is going to happen when I drink this. And she drinks it and then she grows so big she gets stuck in the house and then it's a mess. The animals are trying to get her out. But yeah, she's called curious, but at the same time, she's completely careless. There's curious and then there's careless.
Let's jump back to Beaver's Press a little bit. So it sounds like they really helped you and aided you getting these books off the ground, getting thing really rolling. You said that they gave you a list of places to go for press and different things like that. So it sounds like Beaver's Press has really been a pinnacle in getting your book launched and out there in the world. Let's talk about some of the awards that you've won. Now, was that through the help of Beaver's Press or was that just gaining your own traction?
Yeah, they gave me a list to go to check out. There was the New York City Big Book Award, the Midwest Book Award. It's been a while. I don't remember off the top of my head which was on their list. I'd have to look up the list, but some I found later. New York and Midwest for sure was on their list. They gave a list based on ones that they have a working relationship with. They gave others based on very specific genres. Like I think they listed one for like Western or like frontier kind of writing.
Oh, cool.
Some for science fiction or like sci-fi fantasy. So ones that's specialized in specific genres. Moonbeam, I think, was more like children and young adult, younger readers. And then some other awards I found later. Again, I don't remember all of them off the top of my head. But like I won one for a literary titan. I won gold for that. And let's see, also Pencraft, Feathered Quill. And then Independent Press, I won a silver for. Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. So these different awards that you have won for your book, did you have to go to a ceremony or anything, or was it all done online? I know all of this is happening COVID and a little after.
Midwest required physical copies of the book, but most others will take an ebook, which really helped. And you do have to pay a fee. A lot of times like you enter for one main category, you pay one fee for that, but then they'll charge you like a little extra for any extra genres or categories you want to go to. Say you want to enter it in one category, you pay like $95. And then you want to do some more, and then it's $75 for each after that, just as a general example.
But is a more kind of like a pay to get into these places?
Yeah. And one thing I recently talked about with the writers group, I've been hearing this through various sources online. There's something called vanity presses, which are, generally speaking, are basically publishers who will publish your book for a fee. But yeah, like, first of all, they charge a lot and you don't get a lot for your money. They'll do a very bare minimum of editing and maybe get a cover for you. The point is, it's like they charge you an arm and a leg and they do next to nothing for you other than get it printed. So essentially, it's, according to a lot of people, they're scams. But what I didn't understand was they made it sound like any publisher you have to pay for is effectively a scam. And here I'm thinking that I don't want to wait years and years just to get a rejection from New York Times or Penguin or something. And I want more resources than what I can get for self-publishing. But anyway, what I really didn't understand was it's like, why shouldn't a publisher charge something to publish your book? Isn't that kind of saying Firestone is a scam for charging to have them fix your car? That was what I didn't understand, because as much as I don't like to say it, it's
a business.
At the end of the day, it's a business. And at Beaver's Pond, yes, I paid literally thousands for both of my books to get published by them. But they gave me a lot of guidance. Like I said, they assigned a project manager for me. We emailed constantly. I got a lot of the cover art from other sources. They gave me what they needed as far as dimensions and everything. They asked me, like, do you want a paperback or hardcover? What kind of paper do you want? The glossy or the other kind? I don't remember the name. But the point is, they asked me questions about what I wanted. They wanted to know everything. They just didn't slap a cover on just to get it done and over with. There was also the list of awards and festivals, and they got it online and in print. I still had to do a lot of the marketing myself, but the point is they gave me so many resources to work with and to choose from. So it was still very much worth it.
Wonderful. How was the marketing for you? Was that kind of difficult to do? Did you have to do, you said a lot of legwork and things like that. Was it a lot of more online promotion? Was it just a lot of going to open mics and reading your book? What was that like for you?
As far as Allie goes compared to New Moon, I had more experience under my belt, just more than I had with New Moon anyway. And also by then, COVID was more or less over. By then, a lot of the restrictions were lifted. I could actually go out and do advertising. I took advantage of a lot of the contests, like I said, and then also doing a lot of research on different craft fairs that I'm trying to do more, like in the spring and the summer. And so, like last year, I signed up for Duluth Sidewalk Days or Downtown Days. I forget what they're calling it now. The Sidewalk Days and Two Harbors Heritage Days, which are like outdoor summer fairs that they do every year. Those were a lot of fun. And then there's also the Festival of Trees at the Deck just before Christmas. That was also a little expensive, but a lot of foot traffic there. A lot of people are Christmas shopping, so it helps. And then even small ones, like she does a lot of little fairs, like at the Peace Church. I've also done some at St. Michael's Church. Even little fairs like that, every little bit helps. There's some that I've seen at like the Armory in Cloquet, I want to say. Yeah, I believe it's the Cloquet Armory. And I'm also looking at others that, like in other parts of Minnesota, I'm hoping to try to travel a little farther out of Duluth and Wisconsin. And I've also gotten more confidence about going to stores, contacting stores, shops, and seeing if they'll take my book. I've got my book at Zenith. I got Fitger. I got the little gift house in St. Croix. When I was visiting family down in St. Paul, my sister and I found a little place called Subtext Books, and I told them about my book there, and they have that online too, so people can order it in St. Paul if they like. Yeah, so I'm getting more knowledge and confidence about contacting people, and not everyone will take my book, and that's okay. The point is I'm putting a lot of lines of communication out there and just seeing whether I get a bite or not. Don't, but yeah, and also the thing to remember is, like, even if a store doesn't take it or even if you don't win a contest, the point is there are eyes seeing it. So it's like maybe they'll decide to read it on their own time, even if they don't formally recommend it. Maybe they'll recommend it to someone else. The point is I'm getting some eyes on this thing. So that's the thing to remember.
Yeah, of course. Erica, that's excellent. So what's up next for you?
All right. I recently got the idea of maybe taking all of the poetry that I wrote for Allie's Adventure on the Wonder and maybe compiling that into a little poetry collection.
Oh, fun. Excellent.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about that. And there are actually some poems that were deliberately started and never finished just for plot reasons. So I think I may take those and actually finish them. And so that'll be a nice little challenge for me later on. Poems that have lines interrupted, like they're complete, but they're like you have to skim down a little bit to read the rest of it. Yeah. So again, that's another reason to put it all together so people can enjoy them in full without being interrupted by the plot. And then I think I mentioned in our New Moon's Family interview, I know we did one for that, I mentioned I was developing a sci-fi novel.
Yes.
Still working on that. I have taken a little hiatus from that at the moment in advertising Allie and still working on my radio show, The Tale Collector. But yeah, I'm still doing research for that. That involves a lot of movie watching, a lot of reading. I've watched the entire original Star Trek twice. I've watched The Twilight Zone. In particular, I'm researching a lot of like vintage science fiction, like pre-50s and 60s. Because as hokey as all the B movies are by today's standards, they have a nice quirky charm to them. They're a lot of fun to watch. One of my favorites is The Incredible Shrinking Man. That's a big inspiration for this one. I don't want to spoil much, but taking a lot out of that one besides Star Trek and Twilight Zone, and then the writings of Richard Matheson, who wrote The Shrinking Man, and then Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote 2000. And then I have some works from Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, Harlan Ellison, and again, the B movies of the past. So just a lot of stuff like that. My main character is a cinephile who likes science fiction. She's an outcast for it. And then she actually meets an alien, becomes a surrogate mother of sorts. I've really grown to like science fiction, first of all, and also I wanted to challenge myself by writing an adult story. It has more heavy themes in there, maybe some sex here and there. Tastefully, of course. I'm really trying to make not to be too gratuitous or anything. So yeah, it's something I've never really focused on before. I think of it as a fun challenge for myself.
For sure, Erica, for sure. Erica, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me and the wider world about your book, your awards that you've won, your radio show, everything sounds like it's going amazingly. Thank you so
Yes.
much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I like your background, by the way.
Oh, thank
I
you.
mentioned it before, but yeah, it's very beautiful.
Thank you. All right,
Thank you for
Erica.
meeting me.
Yeah,
Yes.
of course. I'll let you go here and we'll talk soon.
Sure. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Bye.